All right, folks, welcome back into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Feldman. He's Carl Jones. Carl, it's back to just the two of us. All of our friends has left us after a very fun and entertaining draft. And I got to say, the reaction to the draft and all, we got some discussion around it. I was really excited with the turnout. I'm really excited with the way it turned out, and I'm glad that everybody seemed to enjoy it.
Nah, it was definitely lit. Last Friday night when we was out and about, getting games for Round Ball Roundup, I had a couple people, multiple people, come up to me, talk about the draft, whoop de whoop, like, shout out for y'all for picking me. We're gonna put on for you. You know, we're gonna do our thing. So it was cool to hear that energy and not just like people acknowledge that it happened, but also like, hey, no, like we got you. Like, hold on, like I'm gonna make your pick look smart, or I'm gonna make your pick look goofy. So like it was one of those type of things where all fun and games. I love to hear that. I'm out here trying to shoot a game and somebody tapping me like, hey, we got you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, but it was all fun, man. It was really, really cool to see.
No, I know the Iglesias are getting into it. You and I, of course. Here's a quick recap of where we stand, and we're to get into our sectional basketball preview in just a little bit. But we'll get this out of the way first. So, Carl and myself, we are leading the pack. We have 3 teams remaining in as we approach the sectional championships. Carl lost Fairport. I lost Gananda Girls. So we're leading the pack right now, and then both the Iglesias have 2 teams remaining. Gerard lost the York boys and the Wheatland Chili boys. Karen lost HAC boys in a first round upset. And then the Bishop Kearney girls who lost to Hilton last night. So basically the way it turns out, how this is all going to shape out is basically it's between me and Carl, unless neither of our 3 teams go 2-1. So if me and Carl win 2 of our championship games, the Iglesias are knocked out, and then it comes down to just me and Carl, and then it's just whoever wins more games. We could get into some tiebreakers, but certainly it's not unreasonable that 2 of these teams can get knocked off. Everybody's got some really even games here in this championship week, so I think everybody's still in it to an extent. So it should be good as we're going down the stretch, and of course, we'll keep that updated for you on next week's show, and of course on social media. You can sure that I'll be tweeting out, especially if I'm the one who wins this thing. So we got a lot to get to the show, so we're going to get right into it. Before we get into the basketball, we're going to recap all the hockey action. Both very dramatic games. You had lead changes in the third period, overtime games. Carl, why don't you take us through what went down Monday night at the Gene?
Yeah, let's start with the big dogs in Class A. McQuaid finally climbed the mountaintop yet again. First time since 2015 with a 4-2 win over Portside. They got down 2-0 in the second period, so it was looking like, Portside, that same energy that they brought to the Pittsburgh game, looked like it carried over to the championship game. But then McQuaid tied it up heading into the third, and then the freshman, Chase Brock, took over 2 goals in that final period to put McQuaid ahead and give them their first sectional title since 2015. And it was kind of funny seeing their reaction after they won compared to Batavia Notre Dame, and I'll get to in a bit. It seemed like McQuaid, like, they knew they were supposed to do this, and it was a bit of a relief. Like, all right, we finally got this. Don't get it twisted. They were very excited, raised the brick, cheered with the student section, all that good type of stuff. But it was more of that, all right, what's next type of vibe. And I think that kind of speaks to the coaching staff they have over there and keeping those guys even keel. But the freshman, Chase Brock coming up huge in that third period. McQuaid scoring 3 goals to put that game on ice, literally. And then also, it's kind of cool. We're interviewing coach after the game, and I see in the corner of my eye, I see a little Gatorade bath, water bath coming. I'm like, nah, buddy, I don't really know you like that. You're going to have to take this Gatorade bath. And he got dumped with the Gatorade, and it was all cool to see right on the ice. But it was cool, man. Shout out to the Knights for getting it done. First time since 2015.
Yeah, a lot of losses in the semifinals, etc. in the past, 8 or so years. So good to see McQuaid get back on top. Portside, probably a little bit of that attitude from McQuaid coming with the fact that Portside playing with house money after that big upset over Pittsford. So, McQuaid gets it done there. They will play Ithaca in the state regional round. Ithaca ranked all the way down at 16th in the state, Section 4, a little bit down this year as they're somewhat kind of often are, but you never know come state tournament time. So McQuaid looking to get back to Buffalo. Well, they'll face either West Jenny or Orchard Park if they were to make it there.
Then the Class B game had a little bit more theatrics. It was the first game of the night. Batavia Notre Dame getting it done in overtime, taking down Thomas. Joe DeRizio, my man, he lived every dream. You know, like whether it's a baseball player acting like you in the bottom of the ninth, like bases loaded, you got to be the one to bring home everybody to win it. Basketball player, clock winding down, game winner. My man Joe DeRizio did just that. Overtime winner to win a sectional championship. It was really, really cool to see. But they got up early 2-0. Thomas stormed back, scoring 2 in the third. And you kind of felt the energy shift. I was on the Thomas side shooting, and you can feel student section lit, parents into it. You can look at the bench themselves, really high energy. And coming out into OT, the energy kind of stayed the same in the arena a little bit. I'm like, oh man, Batavia Notre Dame been probably the best team here all year long. I hope it don't go down like this for them. But then Mr. DeRizio got it done. After the game, very well spoken. Shout out to a kid of his age talking like that. My boy acted like he did like 30 interviews before. I'm like, man, come on. I need to talk to you more often, all right? But it was also cool to see that a lot of more combined programs coming in hockey. I mean, across all sports, to be honest, but really in hockey. So the first combined program with Batavia High School and Notre Dame High School combining 3 years ago, I believe. So that was cool to see. And they kind of talked about like how, like, yeah, we're a combined school, but we just feel like it's more like brotherhood type of deal. So I like to see that vibe. And shout out to Batavia Notre Dame for getting it done, because that was an exciting game for sure.
Yeah, eventually you build up that combined program. It really does kind of feel like one thing, kind of like East Rochester Ganonda football. You know, we've been out there a bunch like that. That's kind of just like a unit at this point. And BND United certainly getting to that point with this win. And with the way that the Division II bracket works, there's an at-large bid rotating around. Section 5's getting it this year. So both of these teams moving on to the state tournament, actually. Batavia Notre Dame, they will take on Kenmore East, who is ranked 3rd in the state. That game will be at RIT. Thomas, they're going to have to go out on the road. Tough test. They get top-ranked Skinny Atlas in the regional round. They're going to go out for that game in Section 3. And the one thing I do think is kind of cool about this, our at-large bid, certainly deserving. Thomas, a very good team. And B, Thomas is one of those teams back in 2020 where they had their run to the state Final Four cut short by COVID. So they made it to the Final Four, never got to see what could happen. So I feel like in a small sense of the way, obviously different players, but, kind of a little, making up for a little karma. They're getting that state berth back just a couple years later.
I mean, they're a very deserving team. It's not like they're just being gifted something and like they're a trash program or something. That's a very darn good team, good program, all that good type of stuff.
So all those games will be at RIT from our sectional champs, of course. They will be at RIT this Saturday. Don't think we're going to be able to get out to them this weekend because we have a lot of basketball games to cover. 16 in total, 9 sectional championships on the boys' side, 7 for the girls, just based on how many class sizes there are. Boys at the Blue Cross Arena, girls over at Finger Lakes Community College. Instead of running through the games one-on-one, where we really don't get a chance to dive into anyone specifically, we're going to do what I'm going to call our sectional superlatives. We're going to highlight some of the top athletes, players, games, storylines, schools that we're really looking forward to watch. We're going to start off, Carl, with our game that we are most looking forward to watching. Carl, what are you really looking forward to seeing this weekend?
We talked about it all year, man. Oh my gosh, girls class AA, vaunted bracket, woo, best we've ever seen in some years. Well, we got chalk. Victor 1, Mr. Hilton 2, meeting up in the sectional championship game. Obviously, the roles weren't easy. It wasn't like they just dominated their way. Well, Hilton did to a certain extent, but Victor taking out Schrader last night in a fantastic game. Hilton taking care of business against BK. But just on these two teams in particular, you look at the history. Hilton beat them by 30 in January, and then Victor comes around and then beats them a month later. So you can say like the 30-point win is like more of a fluke. I don't know what happened in that one. I wasn't there. I'll need to ask around and know how you lose by 32 points, considering that you're a top 3 team at worst in the state, whatever you want to say. So that's interesting. You got 2 fantastic players on both sides. We'll dive into one of them a little bit later, but Mallory Hayes, Rylan Fehrenbach, 2 fantastic young ladies who I believe are underclassmen. I know Fehrenbach's a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Fehrenbach's a sophomore and Hayes is a junior. Yep.
Hey, look, y'all gonna see him probably at the big house. In the sectional championship again next year. So I can't wait. I mean, we've been talking about all this classification all year. It didn't matter who was gonna be in this game. I was gonna pick it for my game to watch. Victor, Hilton, 1 versus 2, 4th and 5th in the state. What more do you want?
Yeah, this is such a good game that I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in some of my other superlatives. So I'm not going to get too much into it. But I was there at the semifinals. Both pretty darn fun games. Hilton, pulling away a little bit before I got there. Victor coming down and clutch down the stretch, which really proves something to me. But we'll get into that just a little bit later. My game to watch, same class, other gender, AA boys. The Athena Trojans pushed to the wire in the semifinals. They took down Penfield 61-57, and then Victor rolling through the semifinals against Irondequoit. Honestly, that might have been the most impressive performance I've seen all season long. Irondequoit, they're not quite as good as they were last year, when they went all the way to the state championship game. They've still got Quinn Vankerkove. They've still got Isaiah Ballard. Almost as strong as a 1-2 punch as you can find here in Section 5. The depth just wasn't there this season. But man, the only word to describe that Victor game was clinical, because it was just an exhibit. We had no look passes, we had ball movement, we had shooting. All 5 of their starters were in double figures. Garrett Claird with 14, Owen Dake with 16, Griffin Hopkins with 15, Nick Leonard with 10, and Cam Ryan with 10. Ryan, he was out most of this year with an injury, so they're firing on all cylinders. Athena, they did Athena type things, which usually we say about, a Goliath of a program who just dominates everybody because we don't got anything to say. Athena type things is being down in the 4th quarter and coming back somehow every single time. They did it again, of course, against Penfield with a 9-0 run late. They were down by 7 with 3 minutes to play. 3-pointer stopped, 3-pointer stopped, 3-pointer, boom. That's your ball game. They did it against East. They did it against Hilton. They did it against UPrep. So they're playing with fire. And I'm just going to say this, and then I'll turn the floor over to you, Carl. I'm going to pick Victor in this one. Just the way that these teams have been playing, I think Victor is the team that can, finally, call Athena out kind of for the way that they've been playing in these first 3 quarters in some of these type games. I think they got, the experience, the talent, the pedigree. I'm picking Victor in this one.
I think that game probably, on the other side, the girls' game is going to be lit too. But I think this game is going to be really fun considering on both sides, you have really darn good players. Like, screw the fact that, you got a sectional championship game. Athena has 4 or 5 guys that can go. Victor, you just rattled off all the names that can go as well. I can't wait for that one just to see the players cook. I saw I think his name Garrett Claire. I saw him at a Naz Fisher game the other day. I'm like, man, you all right? And I'm hitting his leg. I'm like, make sure he all right, because I know he's been out a little bit, making sure he all right. But I'm just excited to see these games, man. I really am. Yeah, Athena, this is kind of it's kind of weird to say, like, a team who's the number 1 team in the state continues to the comeback kids. That's not a nickname you use for a team of that pedigree, but regardless, they've found a way to get it done, and all that really matters is you win. But Victor, they talked to Tyler Roberts, the head coach, about a month and a half ago at a Brighton game, if I'm not mistaken, and he was saying, like, yeah, man, we're banged up, but we're figuring things out, and they're healthy at the right time. And
Yeah.
that championship pedigree is a real thing. They lost some guys off last year's team, but the core, the top 3 guys are really the same. I know they lost AJ Query from last year, the sharpshooter, but regardless, that game gonna be lit, and I can't wait for that one too.
Yeah, and that is the thing with, having injuries, is that you deal with some problems, and you got other guys to step up throughout the season. Those guys that are playing in those roles certainly have gotten more minutes, more touches, more experience. So now kind of the core of your team, kind of the depth of your team is more battle tested, where that is one thing that Athena has kind of struggled with this season is, they're trying out that starting 5 just about, maybe 80% of the time if they don't get into foul trouble. Nishan Folks hit, 4 threes in that game. He's certainly a nice sharpshooter off the bench. But man, that game is just going to be a fun one. That is the premier showdown on Saturday night, the nightcap tip-off at 8 o'clock scheduled. Hopefully it is at 8 o'clock. I believe I'm going to be there. We still haven't quite figured out exactly what our schedule is going to look like, but I can't wait for that one. We're going to move on to our player that we're most looking forward to. Big time players step up in big time plays, and let's highlight one each that we're most looking forward to see if they rise up to the occasion. Carl, who do you got?
I'm cheating. You said one and I got two, but but it's okay. The Thompson twins, all right, like what they've done over there at Franklin. One of the first stories I've done here in Section 5. Really good kids, and they've kind of been the catalyst to a resurgent Franklin program that's trying to get back to the heights that it's had back in the 80s and 90s. Looking for their first sectional title since 2001. I know they twins, right? But AJ's gonna play these highlights right now, and they don't play nothing alike. I'm sorry. Yes, they are twins. I know they look nothing alike. They play nothing alike. They're different heights, different weights, all that good type of stuff. One's a shot blocker, one's a shooter, one's a dunker, one will cross you over. Don't know how that all worked out, but I'm not a biologist. Now back to these two guys in particular. Terrence Thompson has put up double doubles, 20-point games, 20 point rebound games all year long. Clarence Thompson, sharpshooter, he pulling from wherever. Just got a highlight from him last week, a fade and 3-pointer at the buzzer. Really exciting to see these two guys, see if they can finally put Franklin back on the map. Like I asked them last year when they were juniors. It's the last go around for these two guys. Their head coach always wants to talk about how Franklin's a proud program, with maybe some of the other things that they deal with outside of basketball, dealing with some of the violence in the area and all that good type of stuff. This program has been like a shining light for that school. So if they were able to raise a brick behind these two guys back, it'd be really cool to see. And also selfishly, done a story on those two guys. It'd be really cool to see them raise sectional title.
Yeah, they're gonna play UPrep in that Class AAA championship game. And boy, this game might be first to 100, man. I mean, these teams can run, these teams can put out the ball. They have so many athletes. The thing that this game is kind of reminding me of on paper, one, because UPrep's in it, is back in 2020, the first time I was around here for sectional ball, McQuaid versus UPrep. You had Melvin Council Jr. on one side for UPrep. On McQuaid's side, you had Jermaine Taggart, you had Kobe Long. That was just a fun, physical, exciting, up and down game. You know, there was a big dunk in the second quarter that really got everybody energized. This game is going to be wild. And the thing that I think might be most important is this one. There's going to be so much running. There's going to be so many plays. There's going to be so many opportunities for fouls in these games. So I think it's going to be really important, especially as Terrence Thompson is going to be contesting maybe like 100 layups in this game. How many fouls are you going to get? Because I believe he fouled out in overtime of that semifinal game. So I think that's going to be a really fun game. You know, just the athleticism and you know, on that big court, man, it's going to be a good one.
Can't wait. Except for all these games, but that one in particular, selfishly, trying to see how my story from 2 years ago turned out, or last year.
My player to watch, Mallory Highs from Hilton. You know, we've been talking about Class AA, and that semifinal game in Hilton versus Bishop Kearney was, in my opinion, the battle of the two best, you know, stars, one-on-one players in girls basketball. Mallory Highs versus Asia Wilson. Mallory Highs got the better, although it was for the most part her teammates, you know, leading the way. Ella Clark had the first 11 points in a third quarter where they kind of started to pull away. Leah Thompson had a couple buckets in the big second quarter run. She had 14. But Mallory Highs, she had 8 assists in this game, getting her teammates involved. And then when the chips were down on the table, you know, they were struggling in the fourth quarter. They really couldn't put the dagger on Bishop Kearney. Hilton only scored 2 buckets in the fourth quarter. Carl, you want to take a guess on who scored both those buckets?
I think 14 did. Mallory Heiss.
It was Mallory Heiss. The second one, a really nice, you know, jab step, create some separation, knock out 3-pointers. So it's going to be a really fun battle to see how Mallory steps up when the lights are brightest. I've seen her for a couple years now. I think I've talked about this before, this game against Penfield last year, where she just said, you know, give me the ball, get out of my way, you know, willed that team to a comeback. They came up a little bit short there. And then when I came back to the station, I was like, wait a second, this is a sophomore? This is a sophomore doing this? We got a couple more years of this? And then we wrote her name up on our idea list board of stories we're eventually going to get to. So we'll probably get to that next year. But no, Mallory High is going to be a really fun game to watch going up against that Victor athletic defense. I can't wait to see what she does there at Finger Lakes Community College.
What's cool about her game is a lot of times you get players, and this goes for boys and girls, who are really athletic and they use their athleticism to be better than the player across from them, right? And then a lot of times you can tell a player who's really skillful, may not be like the freakiest athletic guy, but he's so skillful he can do whatever he or she wants. she kind of got the combination of both. Like, she's so strong. I see her go to the rack, boom, like someone bounce off of her. I'm like, dang, okay, hold on, let me make sure my camera right, because she making me feel like I hurt with my ribs or something like that. Then she'll give you a nice little step back, finishes with the left. Y'all know how I feel about them left hand layups, floaters, give it to you however she wanted. She's kind of like a dual threat in terms of she's athletic enough to get things done. Very physical when she's going to the rack. Like a lot of times you can pressure somebody with the ball and make them cough it up. No. She's real confident with it. And then also she's very skillful as well. So very exciting player to watch. And as you said, I had no idea she was a sophomore last year and she was cooking. So like the fact that she has another year, Lord have mercy. I can't wait.
Yeah, kind of that strong, tough athleticism, where I don't know where she's going to play in college, what level, what, caliber. I think wherever she goes, she's going to like their college coach a couple years, like, we got her, like, she's going to be one of those underrated type players where, we're going to be talking to her senior year, be like, hey, now you're an all conference player wherever you are. So I can't wait to see what happens there. Moving on to our underdogs, an underdog that's been rising through the ranks, been doing some noise in the brackets, an underdog, a Cinderella story that we're looking forward to see if they can see if the glass slipper fits or if their carriage turns into a little pumpkin there. Carl, who are you watching for?
Yeah, the Pembroke Dragons over in Class C1 on the boys' side. Listen, I picked this for two reasons. They're going up against Lions, and as anyone who's listened to this, Lions is a fantastic storied basketball program, and Death Taxes, they're going to at least make it to the sectional final. And Pembroke is going to face them. But on the other hand, though, I'll be remiss if I didn't talk about Mr. Tyson Totten. I know all year we didn't talk about on this show about how great of a football player he was, and rightfully so. He won our small school football player of the year. But my man can hoop too. And like, I'm not just saying like he's on the court doing cardio. Like he can he got a couple 30 balls this year. He dropped 22 last week in the sectional final to take down East Rochester. Listen, it's gonna be a tall task going up against Lions. But look, they've won seven in a row. They're ranked 14th in the state. So it's not like there's some long shot, like plus 10,000 odds or something like that. So they kind of, belong here. They belong on this stage. We'll see how they match up with a Lions team who is really, really good every single year. And once again, this year as well. But hey, Tyson Totten, he ain't going to be scared of nobody. Never been. And I think if they're 18-4 on the year, balls bounce a couple certain ways. Pembroke might make something shake. I'm not calling no upset, but as long as they got, I believe it's number 20, the Dragons are going to be all right. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I was able to catch a little bit of both of those semifinal games where Pembroke and Lions won. I didn't see Pembroke at its kind of powers in that game. They kind of got off to a big start before I got there, and then they pulled away in the second half. But I will say the one thing that the Dragons did, they were just in control of that game when I was there. They were calm. They were composed. They've got some sectional pedigree. They've made it to the Blue Cross Arena before. So if there's a team that, has the potential to upset a Lions, you don't want them to get, scared by the bright lights, the big house, etc. A tough Lions team with, I believe, 21 sectional titles on the other side. They've got the experience in basketball, the experience in football. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. The Pembroke Dragons, we've given them a lot of love over the years. That game's going to be 2:00 at the Blue Cross Arena. My underdog, a team that unfortunately knocked off one of my fantasy teams, the only fantasy team I've lost so far, the East Rochester girls basketball team. They took down Gananda 55-54 in the sectional semis. They held Eva Jenny to 15 points. Very impressive. Emma Romack, a trio of three-pointers in the fourth to give their team the spark what they needed. She had 15 points. Zariah Eldridge had 14. They're going to take on Bloomfield in the championship game, who beat Lions 56-55. A very close bracket so far. And I would just say I also saw East Rochester against Byron Burgeon in a really fun quarterfinal matchup. East Rochester, they got some moxie to it. The Eldridge sisters play with a lot of fun. They're energetic. They get into it. They know that they're having a fun time out there. Their coach is firing up the crowd. Things like that. The bench is having a fun time. So I was really impressed with East Rochester in that game. I will tell you this: I left the gym that night being like, I don't know if I'm feeling too good about my Gananda pick. I don't know how I'm feeling about that. So I'm really looking forward to see if the Bombers can go all the way there and raise the sectional brick as a 4 seed in Class C1.
I feel like those Eldridge sisters, and I mean, it makes sense now. Every year I've been here, they've been doing their thing. I know the younger one is a freshman, maybe a sophomore.
I think a sophomore, yeah.
Sophomore, you got you. And she's been on the team since the 8th grade, I know for a fact. But those two, listen, they ain't scared of nobody, and they'll let you know that. And as AJ's referring to, swag, they walk a certain way, dribble up the court in a certain way. It may not be going their way at all times, but they are very confident in themselves. And as anyone who's ever played sports before, confidence is the number one attribute you need to have. They're not short of that, and they're very respectful. I'm not trying to go out there and say that they're like, oh, out here like disrespecting their opponents, but they are very confident in themselves, and it rubs off on their teammates in certain ways as well. Very fun team. I've called them a couple times over the years. Those two girls in particular have always been fun to watch. Yeah, Bloomfield. We'll see what goes down out in Finger Lakes for sure.
Moving on to our small school standouts, either a player or a team that we're looking forward to getting the chance to watch. Obviously, some of these small schools, unless they're East Rochester, we don't get a chance to see them very often because they ain't exactly right down the street. But Carl, what is a small school team that you're looking forward to see rise up on the big stage?
The Avon boys, and we're going to go back to the first episode that we recorded this. I told y'all when I was at the gym, dude in the saunas, the coach on the team, what I think the assistant coach said, it's another year, we're going to be all right. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll see about that. He said Aquinas was going to be good. They ended up being good. So shout out to him. Clearly, he know what he's talking about. But boy, they got a trio that can go bar for bar with just about anybody here in Section 5. Trevor Shroud, Josh Harder, and Michael Rowling took down Leroy in overtime last week. I mean, not last week, earlier this week on Monday. The Merritt Holly Jr. show showed up yet again, so they had to, take it up a notch because that he's a very darn good player in his own right. But look, Avon, their 5th straight sectional final appearance. This is a fantastic team that's, I believe, 20-1 on the season. So this isn't like a surprise that they made it this far. They're 3rd in the state, taking on a Marcus Whitman team who was a 3rd seed. I think if there were some teams that we would have predicted back in December that would be in this moment, I think Avon would be near the top of that list. So I'm not all too shocked, but it is kind of cool to see a team that's really good, shows it, and then is improving on the court this time of year.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because when this AAA class got introduced, things got shaken up, moved around, moved up and down, etc. Avon was a team that seemingly kind of got the raw end of the deal. They moved up they've been in Class C1 before. They're now up in B2. I think one of the smaller Class B schools around, here in New York State, in the area, of course, they don't care. They got a really good team. They can all play ball. They're, like you said, they're number 3 in the state. Who knows? It could have worked out to their benefit if, who knows what would have happened in a Lions matchup. So, the Riverhawks, as they're now known, have been really fun all season long. Can't wait to see what they do in that sectional championship game. Likewise, I can't wait to see Avoca Prattsburgh because I think this might be my time to finally be at Blue Cross Arena to see the Avoca Prattsburgh show. And they have just been chugging along. They're the defending 2-time state champs. They've played a really tough schedule. They've been in like the 7 or 8 to 10 spot in the state rankings, 5-ish, which is unheard of for the Titans there. They're back up at number 3. They're rolling through the sectional tournament. They I don't have their score actually off the top of my head, but they won by like 30 points in the semifinal round. Daniel Stilson, 37 points in that game. We got a new name to keep track of. We know the Putnams, McCoy Putnam had 17, but Daniel Stilson had 37 in that game. They're going to take on an Alba team who is really making quite the Cinderella run. They're at a 7-15 record. They beat Andover Whitesville 40-36. So good luck, Alba. Your reward for this great comeback victory is Avoca Prattsburgh. Gerard probably made the smartest pick of the draft by taking them 3rd overall. We let him slide, but Avoca Prattsburgh. They're probably not going to be the favorites coming into the state tournament based on the state rankings, but I ain't picking against them. I know that's for sure.
Nah, definitely not. I mean, we only catch them about once a year, like, and it's this weekend, and every year they always seem to impress. And like Gerard said on our draft show, the one thing that sticks out is they go up and down that flow. I mean, for a Class D school, they get up and down the court like this is what they do. Like, and that's probably why a lot of these Class D teams are overwhelmed where, you rely more on skill, sets, plays, things of that nature. I'm sure Volker Pressburg runs plays, but they so fast it don't matter. like for
By
real,
the
like
time they have to start running those plays, they're already up 15 points because of their athleticism.
yeah, for real. Like and especially on the big house court where it's much bigger than probably any of the Class D gyms they played in all year. That's just not fair for these other teams. They dealing with the big court. They win. They gotta get their stamina up a little bit, and then lo and behold, Volker Pratsburg out here playing cross country on the basketball court. Just a fantastic team. Every year we watch them. You better get those highlights early. Like you better get the first and second quarter highlights, because if you get the fourth quarter ones, they already up 40. They're useless. Fantastic team, and despite what the record says, as we know, they are still good again this year.
Yeah, especially when you're on a big stage and you've got the pedigree, so you're ready for this. The other team might, be trying to, get its bearings to start off that game. That's not a squad that you want to be, floundering on early on. So, that game will be 4 o'clock on Saturday at the Blue Cross Arena. And finally, we wrap things up with our storylines that we're most looking forward to seeing. A thread throughout the season, a historical achievement that we're really looking forward to see if it comes to fruition this weekend. Carl, what you got?
A lot of storylines to pick from. Truly is girls and boys up and down the slate. But for me, it's gonna be one that's a little bit more personal. Zymir Jackson and the East Eagles making it to the sectional final game. I sat down and spoke with him. I did a story on him about a couple weeks ago. You guys can find it over at rochesterfirst.com. His father, the late great Kenny Jackson, was a really good player here. Played at Edison Tech, won 2 sectional finals. And just hearing how he revered his father so much. And when I posed the question on like what would a sectional title mean to you, and you kind of ask that to all kids, right? I mean, just what do you want to get? Like it's an easy soundbite, it's a layup for a kid to answer, but it hit different for him because of the fact that he wanted to get 2 sectional titles just like his father. Zamir obviously won one in football this year, and then would love to match him this upcoming year in basketball. Said he's not really the biggest basketball player. He's obviously committed and signed to play at Clarion next year for football, but he's playing hoops because of his dad. So I think it will be really cool, and I can't wait to see how he feels if they were able to be successful and win. I believe Saturday night, excuse me, because I know how much it will mean to him. I asked the question to him; he had to pause a little bit, just think about it, because that's how much. Obviously, everyone wants to win. We all do. And we all got our own selfish reasons as to why we want to be victorious in anything. But for him, it's bigger than just the brick. I think it's something beyond that. So I think that would be a really interesting storyline to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, especially the Eagles last year in that sectional championship game. They come up short to Sutherland. I remember watching that story. He was talking about, thinking about things he could have done better. His dad talking about, ways he could have changed his game, things like that. So if he can kind of, ride off into the sunset with his senior season, raising a sectional brick, he'll have all those questions answers. He'll get 2 sectional titles, like you said. There's a lot of similarities there. So I'm sure that's going to be a fun game to watch, especially on the other side. Wayne's been a really good team. They're not going to go down quietly, but definitely something we're going to be watching for as the East Eagles look to get back on top after last year's defeat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like Wayne, like I know we got 2 Eagles here. Just saw Wayne last week. I got one of them Blankenbergs over there, right? And then they got some other guys who are tough as well. That'll be a fun one for sure.
I think they played each other in like 2022 or something like that. I think I remember an all-Eagle showdown where East came out on top. My storyline, the Victor girls basketball team. This is not a program for a school that has had all of this success in various sports, in hockey, in boys basketball, in girls and boys lacrosse, up and down. They've got some bowling success. Girls basketball really hasn't been one in recent years that gets up to that caliber. They're playing for their first sectional title. If they win, it would be their first since 1990, which doesn't sound that far away because it's 1990 and we're in 2024. Until I say this has been 34 years. It's weird how much different that sounds. That's 34 years away is 1990. But Ashley Zahn has got them, those ladies, cooking on all cylinders in that semifinal game where they took down the defending state champs, Ryland Fehrenbach, with 26 points, Devin Livingston with 21 points. Really the catalyst, because no one else had more than 3 points in that game. But, I've been a little questioning of Victor as they've gone throughout this season and won their games. How are they going to get it done in the fourth quarter? How do they score their points? Well, last night it was Devin Livingston. They were up 1 with just over 2 minutes to go. Back-to-back possessions. She hit some tough floaters in the lane to move that lead from 1 to 5. Victor's really building something there. They're going to have the foundation for a while with Rylan Fehrenbach, just a sophomore. But I'm going to be really excited to see if they can finish the deal here and win a sectional title. It's going to be a really fun matchup for both schools. This isn't Bishop Kearney winning every year. This isn't Penfield. This isn't, Mercia of times of old, the last decade. Hilton hasn't won a sectional title in over 10 years. Victor obviously is a long time coming. So some good history going to be made in that game, no matter who comes out on top.
You did a story with her last year at Ashley Zahn, and I think it kind of really speaks to how good of a coach she is. The fact that they've turned this around rather quickly. I know that you spoke and sat down with her, and she talked about the things that she's going to implement and bring to the table. Obviously, her father was a legend here in the area as well as a coach himself. But you look at that team, and Rylan Fehrenbach is a fantastic player. Every highlight, I feel like she gets to that left hand, and it don't matter what you do, she gonna get to that left hand. It don't matter what you try to do to stop her, she gonna get there. And then you look at the other players who probably Division I athletes in every other sport but basketball. But the fact that they're able to buy in, do the little things, because that's what really speaks out about Victor. They hustle. They're always in the right place at the right time. So that really speaks to Ashley Zahn as a coach and how they've really turned this program around rather quickly, because I believe this is just her second year as the Blue Devils head coach.
Yeah, they've really got something cooking there. They're playing to their strengths. They're using their athleticism, their speed, their quickness. So that's going to be a fun matchup in, wait for it, girls AA. It all comes back around to girls AA from start to finish. So we've got a lot of games for you coming up this weekend on Round Ball Roundup. We got a double header of Round Ball Roundup, Friday night, Saturday night. I think there's a good chance we get out to all 16 games. We're going to see how our schedules work out, etc. Getting these shows on the air as well. But tons of sectional coverage. Primetime is going to be out there in full force as well, so you can catch out our friends too. But that's going to do it for us this week on the High School Huddle. We'll be back next week where we chat with our friends from WNY Athletics to talk about some Far West Regional matchups, which is always fun. Those games going to be at FLCC in Buff State. So we got a lot of fun for you this weekend. It's time for us to get out of here. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, RochesterFirst.com, and YouTube. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. Thank you for listening and watching to the High School Huddle, and we will see you next time.